Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Once again, our thanks to Michael Bublé for joining us a couple of segments ago. Elliotte Friedman is next. We're just waiting on Elliotte. All of our guests today, including Elliotte and Michael, sponsored by Basant Motors. Basant is looking to help save you money in 2024. Choose no car payments, no gas payments, or no insurance payments until the summer. Get all the info at Basant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. We got Elliotte yet? 15 seconds. During the show, somewhere during the next hour, maybe the next segment, it's open. We're going to give people a taste of what Vasily Podkolzin was up to on the weekend. He got himself a Gordie Howe hat trick down in California.
Good for him.
Against Bakersfield. And the element to his game that I had no idea about was his ability to drop the gloves and drop them effectively.
And
so hopefully we have time to show that.
And against a big guy who was 6'4". You know, he didn't take on some guy 5'10".
They beat Bakersfield 3-2 to the Abbotsford Canucks on Saturday, lost to them 4-3 on Friday, and Podkolzin, 2 goals, 1 assist in that victory on Saturday. He had 7 shots in that fight.
Yeah.
So a Gordie Howe hat trick, and you know who that has to endear him to? The all-time NHL leader
Rick Tocchet.
in Gordie Howe hat tricks with 18. Head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, Rick Tocchet. We got Elliotte? That in the business is called ragging the puck, folks, as we
yes,
wait
it is.
for Elliotte Friedman. We've got him now from Hockey Night in Canada, the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
This is a tame Donnie and Dolly hair day for me. Just so you know.
It looks like you were ragging the puck there, Elliotte. Hey, would you talk to players a lot? Would they rather be at the All-Star game this weekend, or would they rather be on vacation?
Depends on the player. Like, there's some guys who really love, like Henrik Lundqvist. He used to love All-Star weekend. I remember one year he showed up with a specially made jacket that had like a fun liner on the inside. And I said, you know, you could easily get the week off. He said, no, I love this. Lundqvist was a guy who really enjoyed it. And there are some other guys who are like him. I remember Brent Burns and Joe Pavelski were guys who, when they had young kids, they liked to have their kids be part of it. And the kids would go on early in the morning and skate with them, and they had great times. I think there are players who would rather have the vacation. The guys like Boone Jenner, like first time All-Star, they love it. I remember when Brian Elliott came back from a vacation because they were short goalies, and he said, "This is the highlight of my career." I do think some guys who are kind of in the middle of their careers and used to it, they kind of, you know, are like, maybe I could use some downtime. But there are other guys who make it for the first time or are at the end of their careers or have young kids. They really do enjoy it. And I will say this, if players do bring their kids have an awesome time, and it really rubs off on a lot of people around them.
Elliotte, the Canucks brass is in Arizona right now for scouting meetings. They're getting ready for the trade deadline. Tell us some of the names you are linking to the Vancouver Canucks and the trade deadline coming up.
Well, I think that, you know, Rick, I think there's a few different names. There's no question that they're looking for a top 6 forward. You've talked about that at length on this show. I think what they would ideally like to do is get someone who can play multiple positions, because, you know, if you play the 6-4-9 line together, you need a number 2 center. If you don't play the 6-4-9 line together, then you want someone who can play on the wing. So, like, that's why I wonder about a guy like Lindholm, and I do think Lindholm is very high on your radar. Yeah, the one thing here I think is, look, you guys already made a Zadorov deal with Calgary, so you guys do have the ability to make deals with them, but you had to pay a little bit more than some other teams might have for Zadorov. You had to throw in a second-round pick there, or a second pick there, not a second-round pick, but a second pick. You know, you were willing to take the full money. I just think that if it's going to be Flames Canucks, for a guy like Lindholm, you guys are going to have to pay a little bit more than some other teams will. You know, obviously Gensel, he's not a center, but he's a talented guy. So I think you've always been on talent. I think you've talked about Vetrano before. I think Henrique is on their radar too. I just think they're looking for a player who's available, who's a top six kind of guy, preferably one who can play center and wing. Those are the kinds of names I think that are going to be on your radar.
Elliotte, you linked Chicago and Kuzmenko today on your 32 Thoughts podcast. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, look, I mean, I think that the Canucks are going to be looking to open up some cap room. For you to go out and get a player like a Gensel or like a Henrique or a Lindholm or anyone else, there's going to have to be money going out. And look, we all kind of see where this is going a little bit with Kuzmenko. And the reason I named Chicago is that they really need some scoring. Especially with Bedard out, they have all sorts of trouble scoring. And if you look at them, they are looking for players who don't have a lot of term. They just extended 3 guys, Foligno, Dickinson, and Mrazek, but it's only for 2 years. Kuzmenko can score. He struggled this year, but he can score, and he only has 1 year left. And look, again, you guys have already made a deal with Chicago. You did a Beauvillier deal. So you guys have proven that you can do trades with them. I think that Kuzmenko is a player that should be on Chicago's radar. Ever since I blurted out on the pod this morning, Rick, I've had a couple of people say to me they think it's a little more than that. They think Chicago has looked into the possibility of it. We'll see if it goes anywhere. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but it makes a lot of sense for both the Blackhawks and the Canucks.
All right, Chris Tanev, you brought up on Hockey Night in Canada Saturday. Ottawa, you've linked, but Elliotte, there's a ton of teams after. I was told this morning 10-plus teams after Chris Tanev. What are your thoughts on where he could end up, including Vancouver?
I'm beginning to think that you've tapped Tanev's phone line, by the way, Rick. You're like Pierce Morgan. You're hacking into people's voicemails.
Oh, no.
I think that, look, I think Tanev's got a lot of interest. He's hugely respected. Ottawa's looking for pros. They've talked about getting guys who are real pros. Tanev fits. I mean, he's 100% that kind of player. The issue there is that Ottawa's not going to make the playoffs this year. I think Tanev would like to go to a playoff team, but I don't think Ottawa's given up on it. I think they want to be in the playoff race next year. Look, they wanted to be there this year. It didn't work. They want to be in the playoff race next year. They could use a right shot guy. Tanev's a great pro. I do believe Ottawa has made it very clear that if they're in this, they will make they will be competitive in their offer. So I don't expect it to happen now, but until he signs long term, I don't think the Senators will give up on the idea. And I think but like you said, I think there's a lot of interest in him, and we'll see. I'm curious to see if this means he could get traded with an extension, or he just goes and finishes out the year wherever he plays.
Right.
And before I let you go, Elliotte, Patrick Laine of the Blue Jackets entering the NHLPA player assistance program. The players that have ended that program recently, it's a long list. Gerard Nikushkin, Milan Lucic from around these parts. Like I said, the list goes on. Just how successful has that program been? How important is it?
Well, I think it's really important. It depends on the players. Some players have said they've had really good experiences with it. Some players said they haven't. But in my experience, the majority of them do seem to like it in terms of what they think it does. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get 100% success rate. But most of the players that I've dealt with who've gone through it seem to like what it can do. I know that in some cases there have been situations where a player will leave and people will say, well, is it, once you get back into the NHL, do you fall back into some of the old concerns and habits? I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I think we all know people who've battled with, whether it's anxiety or whether it's some kind of addiction. Those are not easy things. Like, you go through your initial process and they teach you ways to deal with it, but it can still be very hard. And, I think in Laine's particular case, he talked about in his Instagram post, a mental health break. I mean, that's with us all day, every day, right? And we'll all learn techniques to handle it and deal with it and take it face on. But there's not a 100% success rate. So Some players have come back and have really thrived, and you really like to see that. And some players have come back and continued to battle, and all you can do is just wish the best of luck, because these kinds of things, they go away and then they come back when you're not expecting them, and it's not an easy challenge.
Elliotte, thanks for this. Appreciate that. Enjoy All-Star Weekend. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
All right, guys. Speak to you in a couple of weeks.
You bet.